it's just this fabricated number that can be used to push almost any agenda. And it's frustrating that that gets pushed in front of us. Also, we look at that number and we see the deaths and we think, again, oh, those are my colleagues, my coworkers, my peer group. When in fact, many times it is these elderly people, sometimes, you know, with ailments as well. And I agree, we should definitely try to protect them, but to try to imply that it's happening to everyone, and that's why we need to lock down everyone, it's just hard to believe sometimes. I mean, doctor, do you sometimes feel like we're in some science fiction movie where there's just this, you know, suspension of belief, disbelief, and then we're all going along? Is this hard to watch for you?
Yes, and when it gets too much, then I go on the internet and I start reading the Swedish newspapers.
And what do they say? They talk sense.
There's more sanity there, I think, with how they have dealt with this pandemic. But if you look at what you said before, if you look at the US, they did a survey, and we know that older people in the US are underestimating the risk to them. They think that they have less risk than they actually do have. While younger people, they overestimate the risk. They think they are at much higher risk than they actually are. So there is certainly a disconnect, and this is the failure of the public health message. There's a disconnect that people think that the younger people are more at risk than they are. And partly I think it's because you have a media story about some young person who died, because there are a few mortalities, but then this anecdotal evidence sort of trumps then the statistics.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah, we hear, oh, those kids were partying on the beach and look at all the infection rates, but no one pursues it further and said, oh, yeah, but there were no deaths and now we're shutting everyone down. And yet, like you said, anecdotal vilification of these crazy kids. And now everything gets closed down. All the beaches, all the theaters, schools, when it's just a disproportionate response to this virus.
And when we study epidemiology, like risk factors, whether it's for cardiovascular disease or cancer or anything, if we find a twofold difference in risk between two groups, that's a major effect, a major difference in risk. If we find a fivefold or tenfold, that's just amazing in difference in risk. And in COVID, it's not twofold or fivefold or tenfold or even hundredfold. It's more than 1,000-fold difference in the risk between the different groups. So, and influenza also have a different age risk, because it's more risky for the older people. But COVID is even more extreme than influenza.
Right. And this is something you just don't see very often in these diseases. So when you see it, it highlights the fact that we need a completely different way of dealing with each one of these age groups.
Yeah, and this is different from the 1918 flu pandemic, for example, because the 1918 flu pandemic actually affected young people a lot. So a lot of younger people died in that pandemic. So it's very different this time around compared to 1918. And when I first heard about the pandemic in Wuhan, I quickly realized that this was going to be a worldwide pandemic, that this was not going to be able to contain it in China. It was going to spread. And when it arrived to other countries, it would be impossible to contain it. But I was only worried for about 10 minutes, because I looked at the data from Wuhan by age. And I quickly realized that my children, I have 3 children, and as a parent, I care more about my children than myself. So I quickly realized that this is not dangerous to them. And then I was sort of more calm and no longer worried, because those are the 3 most important people in my life. So.